Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Braz-Tesol for this opportunity, and I would like to welcome you all. Thank you very much for choosing to participate in my presentation. I hope we can learn a lot together. So let me introduce myself briefly. My name's Tanya. I've been an English teacher for almost 40 years. I started very early at language institutes, and then I opened my own school. Our main focus is English for specific purposes for hotels and restaurant staff. Besides managing my own school, I never stopped teaching other kinds of students. So I have also taught college students, and I also have my private students. I usually work with adults, and this is the focus of my talk today. I also took my master's degree in adult education in 2009, and I have 2 books published by Braz-Tesol for English teaching to restaurants and hotel staff. Let me share my screen with you for us to start the presentation. So, as you know, I want to talk to you today about helping our adult students benefit from learning how to learn. And the path I want to follow with you today is to talk a little bit about my personal reasons first. Then I want to mention what is happening to the act of learning nowadays, some practical ideas, and finally we will have time for the Q&A, where I hope I can have some real contact with you. Although this was originally a hands-on workshop, I still think that we can work together along the session. So be ready for some tasks, and maybe when we get to the Q&A moment, we'll be able to share some more. So let's start with my personal reasons and my personal path. Students' responsibilities in their own learning process was always very clear to me. For my master's degree, my hypothesis was that students could improve their sense of self-efficacy and self-esteem if they were taught a few learning strategies. My dissertation was based on a case study. For 2 months, we taught students a couple of learning strategies, and we measured their sense of self-efficacy before and after the project. And yes, students did feel more confident to speak the language after being taught strategies. Research shows that competent learners use strategies and know about their self-efficacy, maybe even intuitively. But is this a natural behavior for all the learners? And this is when we come to study, or I got to study, the self-regulatory processes. And this is basically what we're going to talk about today. So now, before we go on, I'd like you to grab a piece of paper and number it from 1 to 6. I will ask you some questions, and I would like to answer yes or no. And I want you to have in mind the kind of students that you have, or even the students that you have. And try not to judge your students, just answer objectively, yes or no. Do they have this? Are they aware of this or not? Let's go. Number 1, are your learners able to set clear goals for their own learning? 2, are your learners aware that they can improve more if they take more responsibility and control over their own learning? 3, are your learners able to adjust their strategies and beliefs in order to improve their learning processes and results? Are your learners 4, are your learners able to study and practice outside the classroom effectively? 5, are your learners able to self-assess their progress objectively? And finally, 6, do you think that you can include in your class plan activities that help your students learn those things during class? So you get these answers, put them away now, and we'll come back to them later, okay? Let's talk about what is happening to the act of learning today. Nowadays, we know that as adults, we have to be learning all the time. We have to be updating ourselves, we have to be reading about things and improving in our careers. We also have other interests. Sometimes we have hobbies and we want to know more about them. We have the internet with a lot of content, so there is this concept of lifelong learning. But how can we do this effectively if we do not have the strategies to learn and carry out these learning processes effectively by ourselves? For some time now, we have been researching, studying, and learning about some concepts related to education. We talk about learning how to learn, metacognition, self-efficacy, self-regulation, learner individual differences, self-management, self-directedness, learning strategies, autonomy, learner agency, growth mindset, and andragogy, for the least. And we know these concepts are extremely useful for adults to make their learning more effective. Today, the ideas I will share with you come mainly from my studies about self-regulatory processes. Of course, if you are researching one of these concepts, you have to respect the rigor of academic research and look into detailed differences among the concepts, their constructs and propositions. But my aim here today is mainly to share some practices that can help students on the path of learning how to learn. And in my view, some of the concepts that we talked about so far, they overlap. At the end of the session, I will mention the references that I've been reading to inspire me to study these topics. And before we move on, I want to quote Zimmerman on self-regulation. All these quotes I will mention now come from this article that is available on ResearchGate for free. The reference will be at the end of the talk. So let's read the quotes. Self-regulation refers to self-generated thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that are oriented to attaining goals. Recent research shows that self-regulatory processes are teachable and can lead to increases in students' motivation and achievement. Each self-regulatory process or belief, such as goal setting, strategy use, and self-regulation, can be learned from instruction and modeling by parents, teachers, coaches, and peers. So, self-regulatory processes are teachable after all. And the most important thing that you have to remember is that raising awareness, helping students follow this path, and encouraging them to take action is a process. So it takes 3 things to help them throughout. In my opinion, it takes patience, because you have to respect student space and their individual differences. It takes scaffolding, because you have to meet the students where they are and help them step by step. And the questionnaire we answered at the beginning will help you with that. And it takes dialogue, because you have to be purposeful, very transparent, very open, and state your objectives with these tasks right from the start. You are there to help them be more independent, more attentive, to learn how to regulate their emotions and their strategies to reach better results, and to be able to do that without you in the long run and in other areas of their lives. So every activity I will show you, please bear in mind these three things and ask yourself, do I think this is relevant for my student? How can I implement it? So I decided to use this emoji to help us ask ourselves every time we have an activity or I show you an activity. This will be a reminder for you to think about how you can use this with your own students. Okay, so let's start. The first idea is setting goals. Some students are able to set long-term goals. Some students are able to set short-term goals. Some students have to learn how to set goals. I usually use the SMART goals. SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And sometimes setting goals is easier if you ask students why or what for they need English. So what do you need English for? What do you want to do with your English? If you close your eyes and you picture yourself speaking English, what are you doing in this imaginary moment? Because you have to try to start with this. I usually ask in Portuguese the para quê, what for? Because this will help you start from a broader idea and then narrow down to ideas of communication, things the student wants to do, things they need to do sometimes academically or professionally. So these questions will guide them to this what for. So every time I have a new student or a group, I send them this booklet I created that guides them to a path of self-reflection, and they have to answer a few things. And sometimes they don't follow exactly what I'm proposing, but they're able to think about what they want English for. And this is, I brought you a result. This is a very basic student of mine when she started. These are the goals that she set for herself. And of course, then we sat down and talked, and we decided to prioritize. So this one there is number one for her. And this is how we started. So it's important not only to set goals, but also to monitor goals. And in this specific case with this girl, she could only have classes with me once a week. And after 3 months, we stopped and we analyzed what we had achieved. And in her evaluation, I inserted this question. And this is what I ask my students. Are you reaching your goals? Or what else do you need to do to reach your goals, right? So this is my question to you. Are you thinking about something that you could do related to goals and include that in your lessons, right? Okay, the second thing I'd like to show you is the strategy building. I like to think that students, when they learn how to use strategies and they start using them on purpose, they can adjust what they need to their aims, what strategies they need to reach their aims, and they will get better results. So one of the things that you can do to raise awareness to strategy use is you propose a task in class, and once they finish, you have them analyze how well they did. And then you have them retrace the steps they used to perform this task and analyze how effective these steps were. And then you can ask them to question themselves. If I had done something different, would I have a different outcome? Would I have a better result? Can I adjust something I did to have a better result in the future? And then you as a teacher can call students' attention to the process and show them what their strategies are or were in that specific process. There is a tendency that if the strategies were successful, students will reproduce these strategies on similar tasks. If they see that they can adjust something, they learn to adjust strategies to their needs. And this is a never-ending process. You can be doing this many times during the course and showing your students the strategies they are using. And maybe in groups, they can also talk about different strategies and how they can contribute to other people, to other students learning and using different strategies, okay? So the question here again is this relevant for you? Do you think you can use it somehow with your own students? This is another strategy that I used with a student of mine who lives in the United States. She is really scared of talking to people on the streets and the shops because she feels people speak very fast and she doesn't understand a thing. So what we did was she took like a dictation. I sent her an extract of a North American lady speaking about herself. This is the text. And I asked her to listen and take dictation and leave blanks where she did not understand. And then the underlined parts are the parts that she did not understand. And then she brought that to class and we worked on it. And what I could show her is that some of the things that she did not understand were in fact things that she could have inferred from the structure of the language, and other things were parts of the connected speech, like the green parts and the connected speech in red, that she could now get more familiar with and maybe lower her anxiety and have some strategies learning about these things, that she could have these strategies to then feel more confident to go and have a conversation with a local, okay? And in fact, this did happen. She is now trying more because she feels she is a little readier. So the third idea I want to give you is about self-assessment. I'm not sure students are prepared to self-assess. So usually what I do is I start with very concrete self-assessment questions, such as asking about attendance, punctuality, homework, how many hours a week they dedicate to English. And And then I start asking them about participation, how much they contribute in class. And if they think they are not doing enough, I dig in and I ask questions about why. And then they start reflecting about what they do and how much more they could do. And when I ask, and then I ask them how satisfied they are with the quality of their outcome. And if they are not, what they could be doing differently. In this kind of question, there are really so many layers because you're asking about the result, but you're also asking about the process, the strategies, their beliefs. So you were talking about expectations. It's really a very rich exercise. So these are some ideas of how I do this. For example, you can do it in a class. At the end of the class, remember the exit tickets. You can ask them what they're taking from class today. And sometimes self-assessment issues come up. So you can work on that. If you are working on a term or at the end of a program or a semester, maybe your evaluation can be more thorough. You can talk about what they achieved, what else they can do, the next objective, set goals, right? And what I usually do too, I take turns in between or among those things. And I also have a formal Google form evaluation, which helps them self-evaluate. They are very direct questions, and they also evaluate my work and the material and everything we have done during that semester. So I think that when you talk about it and you ask them to self-evaluate, this is very interesting because sometimes they under-evaluate their efforts, they under-evaluate their outcomes, their process. So it's very important that you have some time to talk about this, because it's important that they feel that they are improving. And this sense of self-esteem, self-efficacy has to be present, because this is the best way for them to develop. So no matter how little they've progressed, it's very important that along with the self-assessment, maybe you can have them, or you can give them some feedback, because that's the time where you put your perspective there and you help them see other things that maybe they cannot see. So that's a very productive conversation, and it gives them a sense of achievement, okay? Remember, this is always a two-way road. When we talked about the dialogue, it's a dialogic teaching process. So it's very important to hear from students and also to talk to them about how you see things. So when you look at this, maybe you think it's very time-consuming, but you don't have to use everything. You can use one or the other. And every time we do this, we're doing it in English. And some parts of this students can do as homework. So what you can do, you just do it your way and with the time that you have, and you feel profitable, right? So how can you implement this? Now, self-regulation is also about self-motivation to walk that extra mile. One thing I do to make my students more and more self-motivated and engaged is related to content. So this is an example I brought to you because there is this girl. She participates in a lot of conference calls and meetings. And she makes a point in arriving exactly at the right time because she doesn't feel comfortable with her own English to make small talk. And then what we did is I sent her this Google document and she filled it in with a lot of ideas on how to start a conversation or a small talk interaction with people, because when they arrive early in the conference call, they tend to talk about trivial things, and she was never confident enough to do this. After we did this exercise in the middle of the weekend, I got a text from her. Tanya, I got it, I participated and I could speak and I'm so happy. And then for us, maybe it's not so much, but for her, it was such an accomplishment. It does change all her self-esteem and her sense of self-efficacy to the point that she will now speak more English. So it's not little, it's really a lot for a student, okay? This is an example I brought to you. So I was telling you that content, students bring content to, because self-regulation is about motivation, and motivation is also something that we can help students engage more if the material we use is related to what the student needs. If you are not constrained by a syllabus or a course book, this is something you can do. You can have your students bring in material to be worked on. This is from a student who's a doctor, and she wanted to discuss this in the beginning of the pandemic. So she brought this chart and we talked about it. How can you bring material that is related to your students' interests and then engage them more and bring more motivation to class? This is from a student who has very bad migraine, and this is the medicine leaflet of the medicine that she takes for this migraine. So we discussed that. And sometimes what you can do is give students choice or have students make decisions about what you're going to do next. In this case, when I use Lingua House material, I ask students to choose from between the British and the American audio, for example. And sometimes they have to give me homework, or I suggest an activity for homework, and I let them choose, or I let them decide if they want to hand in some written work or an audio, because it's nice for them to have some say on that, okay? How can you do this? And this other example I'm bringing to you, and again, it's about student taking responsibility. I use Google Classroom to post my material, and I created this submenu called self-study. And in the self-study submenu, the material that I curate and I put there is related to what students feel that they should study more. So I get some exercises with answers and I put them there, and they have the responsibility at their own time to do this, to self-check, and only bring to the classroom questions they could not clarify, things they want to discuss, but then it's up to them. So this self-study submenu is theirs. Okay, so could you use this? Okay, and now we could go back to the questions that we asked in the beginning. And do you think that you would have a few answers on how to help students overcome these obstacles by now, at the end of this talk? I really hope so. So these are the references I used. The Psychology of the Language Learner was a book that I used during my master's. It was very important to me. And the Zimmerman article that I told you is available at ResearchGate. And I'm leaving you with some homework, some further reading. This article just came out from Oxford University Press. It's a position paper written by their experts. And there is also a YouTube video on their channel which comments. It's a Q&A session about this article. So I really suggest that you go after this and have a look. It was really interesting for me to read and watch. So I suppose you are gonna like it too. I will leave my social media here. If you have anything you would like to share with me after the conference, please write. I will be happy to exchange more ideas with you. And now we're going to have this Q&A session where I hope to have some feedback from you and also questions for us to exchange more in real time. Thank you very much. Thank you, Braz-Tesol. Thank you everyone for participating. I'll see you soon.